the king who chose the cradle. Before the foundations of the earth were laid, there was a king, not a king crowned by men, but the King of glory, the eternal, infinite one. His throne was heaven itself, and his robe the light of creation. 1,000 angels sang his praises, their voices echoing through the corridors of eternity. Yet, in the fullness of time, this king made a choice that defied all reason and imagination. He chose the cradle, not a gilded cradle fit for royalty, but a manger, rough-hewn and lined with hay. This king, who commands the stars by name, stepped down from glory to enter our world as a helpless baby. The prophet Isaiah foresaw this miracle when he declared, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." Isaiah 9 verse 6, NIV. But how could it be? How could the mighty God, the everlasting Father, take on the frailty of human flesh? The hands that shaped galaxies now clutched Mary's finger. The voice that thundered at Sinai now cried out in a Bethlehem night. The king became one of us, not in splendor, but in the humility of a cradle. This was no accident. This was no mere gesture. The cradle was his choice. He came to show us that true kingship is not in domination, but in sacrifice. This king traded his crown for compassion, his throne for tenderness, his majesty for mercy. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. Philippians 2 verses 5 to 7, ESV. And so, the king who could have come with legions of angels arrived instead in obscurity. Born to a young girl in a forgotten town, laid in a feeding trough in a borrowed stable, greeted not by nobles, but by shepherds. He chose a cradle so that none could say, "He is too far from me." He chose the cradle so that everyone, from the lowly to the lofty, could know his love. This is the king we celebrate. The king who walked the dusty roads of Galilee. The king who healed the broken, embraced the outcast, and forgave the sinner. The king who traded his cradle for a cross, and his cross for a crown that never fades. This is not the story of an ordinary king. This is the story of the king who chose the cradle to bring light to our darkness, life to our death, and love to our weary souls. This Christmas, kneel at the cradle. Worship the king who chose it for you.